So here are three questions. In each of the following, three questions, you'd find a short paragraph followed by a question. You're supposed to read that paragraph and answer the question that follows. And I'm not really going to make it all suspenseful. These questions are essentially based on critical reasoning. Now in exams like XAT, NMAT, etc., Maharashtra CET, occasionally TISNET, we get direct CR questions. In the CAT, we don't get these questions directly, but practically half of RC, in fact going by last year, even more than half, is essentially critical reasoning. So let me test that aspect of reading comprehension in isolation with the help of these three questions, and thereafter you and I will of course sit down and get into a passage. So let's start. Here you go. The first question on your screen. Once you are done reading it, share your answer with me, and the moment I have three answers, I'll start the discussion. Okay, so we have one answer from Vinayak, and now Nishant. So let me tell you how I approach these questions. So the moment I see critical reasoning, this is my step one. So CR questions basically have three components. You happen to have a paragraph, then you obviously have all these options, and in between the paragraph and the options you have a sentence that asks you to do something. So this sentence is known as the question stem. So a lot of people over the years I've seen they start with the paragraph, but when you start with the paragraph, that ends up wasting your time. You don't even know how to process that information or what to look for until you read the question stem. So what people then do is they read the paragraph, then they read the question stem, then they are forced to go back to the paragraph so that now they can read it appropriately. But then we can save all of that effort by starting with the question stem. Once you are done with that, then step two is where we read the paragraph, understand it, process it the way the question asks us to, and at times, if the paragraph is long or challenging, right, uses a lot of difficult to understand sentences or convoluted structures, you can also choose to paraphrase it. And after that, you come over to the options and implement an ideal approach for that question. So the ideal approach for a conclusion / inference question is where you go to every answer choice and apply a label, true, false, can't say. None of you have chosen A, so let me rule it out. You are right in ruling out A. Let's look at B. B says newspapers give more importance to local news and local stories. Now, if I were to conclude this, where would I conclude it from? It can only come from the second sentence of the paragraph. Let's have a look. Newspapers often give bigger headlines and a lot of coverage to local crimes and local disasters. So now tell me something. If something gets a bigger headline plus more coverage, does that mean that newspapers give more importance to this? Does it equate to more importance? Are we sure? So I know that more coverage, bigger headlines, but then personally, I believe that the front page of the newspaper is perhaps the most important page, right? And the newspaper puts those stories on the front page that they believe are important. So all this local coverage, all this coverage of local crimes and local disasters, is it there on the front page or is it buried inside on, say, the 7th page or the 8th page? So you may give it a bigger headline on page 7. Yes. So we don't know that, right? Bigger headline, more coverage does not necessarily mean that newspapers give more importance to that, right? And therefore the label for B should be can't say. Let's look at C. Newspaper readers are likely to have an exaggerated sense of crime in their localities compared to that in other areas, compared to the crime in other areas. Now have a look at the first sentence of the paragraph. Psychologists say that people think that an event is likely to happen based on how often they come across news about it. Now if this is true, and then they come across a lot of local news, a lot of coverage of the local crimes, local disasters. So if I combine these two, can I conclude that people are likely to think that a crime is more probable to happen in their area because they are reading more news about it? So if you combine, if you look at the paragraph, C will definitely be true. D, newspaper readers also focus on the personal lives of the celebrities, cannot be determined or can't say. There is absolutely nothing that is there in the paragraph to help us infer that. So I think A and D were easy to rule out. B and C were tricky. In B, you had to assume that bigger headline plus more coverage means more importance. In C, you do not have to assume anything. It is true as it is, and that is why the best answer choice here for us is option C. In any way, the moment you see one true and the rest of them as can't say or false, you know that you are supposed to pick up the one that is true as your answer. So that's question number 1. Here is question number 2. Please go ahead and start. Shri, what is the meaning of the word exaggerated? Okay, before I take you back, what is exaggerated? Exaggerated simply means heightened, increased sense. It is not an extreme word. If I have an exaggerated sense of my self-worth, it means that that ideally my worth is here, but in my eyes, my assessment is that my self-worth is more than that. It does not mean that I think of myself as God or a superhuman. So okay, here you go. Second question. Please go ahead, answer this, and we'll move over to discussing it soon. Okay, so Vinayak once again has shared the answer first. Okay, so once again, here is the question stem. Which of the following, if true, would strengthen the claim that Commonwealth Games are not becoming redundant or irrelevant, basically? So in this particular argument, the author has said that the Commonwealth Games are at risk of becoming irrelevant. The question stem says that, okay, one of these options, if true, will tell you that they are not at the risk of being irrelevant. So although it says strengthen here, but in reality, you are weakening this argument. Why and how? What are you supposed to strengthen? You are supposed to strengthen a statement that contradicts the conclusion of the argument. So how do we, so basically in a way it is weaken the above argument question. So how do we weaken an argument? There are just two ways out. You can prove that the premises or assumptions are wrong, or you can go ahead and prove that the premises or the assumptions are suspect, that they are not very sound. That's how you go and weaken. That's all. So let's see. Let's look at A. The public turnout over the course of the Commonwealth Games has been terrific. So look at this. We are saying when it comes to Olympics, guaranteed to draw an audience of billions. So the assumption is that, oh, Commonwealth Games would not draw such kind of audience. But then A says that in the recent games, the audience was like, the turnout has been terrific, fantastic. Terrific is a very positive word, right? So this contradicts the assumption, and therefore A would definitely weaken the argument. This can be our answer. The other option that we picked up is C. So let's look at C. The Commonwealth Games run the risk of being compared to the Olympics. Okay, they run the risk of being compared. So if it is true that they run the risk of being compared to the Olympics, now Commonwealth Games are irrelevant or not? They are at the risk of becoming irrelevant or not? What does it do? Does it tell you that they are not at the risk of being irrelevant? Does it help you disprove any premise or the assumption of the argument that is given to you? If anything, it will go on to strengthen that argument. It will not weaken. And that is why C should not be the right answer. Because if it runs the risk of being compared to the Olympics, and Olympics being grand, remember it is written this Pepsi Cola problem. Pepsi is great, but then Coke is number one. Let me give you another example. There was a time when Roger Federer was at his peak. A lot of other brilliant tennis players could not get all those Grand Slams because Roger Federer, or for that matter, coming closer to home, MS Dhoni era. There were a couple of other really nice wicket keepers. The only problem with them was that they were born in the MS Dhoni era. Their competition was with MS Dhoni and them. Dhoni being Dhoni, they never got an opportunity to play. So they were great, they were really good, but they just had somebody who was better. Right? So if you look at C, this goes on to support the premises. In the entire argument, we are comparing Commonwealth Games with Olympics. C also says that they run the risk of this comparison. And if they run the risk of this comparison, if it is true, then you are lending credence to the premises. You are strengthening that argument, whereas in reality, we are supposed to weaken it. And see, let's not forget that where I'm coming from. If you've gone through the last couple of years of CAT question papers, particularly RCs, you notice that the question stems have been very convoluted. They don't even ask things directly. So these are, so I've just tried to mimic those question stems somewhat here today in some of these questions. So I wrote strengthen, but in reality you had to weaken the given argument. Alright, so here is so the correct answer here is option A. None of you have chosen B and D, rightfully so. Between A and C, C strengthens, A weakens, we are supposed to weaken, so A is the answer. Alright, here is your next question. Go ahead, give me the answer. Okay, so I have an answer from Deepak. What about the rest? All right, so we want to weaken the argument in the advertisement. So what is the argument? Here is the conclusion. If you want an effective cure for migraine, use tablet X. And on what basis are we saying that? A large number of patients who suffer from migraine take tablet X. Therefore, if you want an effective cure for migraine, use tablet X, right? You see an assumption here. Assumption number 1, 705 patients is a sufficiently large number to arrive at the conclusion. Assumption number 2, all those people were taking tablet X for their migraines and not for something else which was associated. Assumption number 3, they asked for tablet X. You know, there are times when we go to a chemist, we say, yaar bukhar ho gaya, koi dawai de do yaar. बोलते हैं ना कई बार जाके, यार बुखार है यार, कोई दवाई दे दे, पेट दर्द है, कोई दवाई दे दे. We may not ask for a specific brand. We may just tell the chemist, the pharmacy, that I have fever, I have headache, I have stomach ache, and then he gives what he gives. So maybe tablet X is being given in that way. So if you start looking closely, you would realize there are quite a few assumptions. Now let's have a look at A. Tablet Y developed by the pharma's rival can cure other pains besides migraine. Okay, so if I have migraine, I have no other problem. Okay, I have migraine. So should I take tablet X or tablet Y? Because the claim is tablet X is an effective cure for migraine. So because a large number of migraine sufferers prefer tablet X, they take tablet X, I think I should also take tablet X. Why would I take tablet Y? I don't have other pains. So you realize A does not weaken the argument. A does not tell us that, oh, tablet X may not be all that great. So A is ruled out. None of you have picked up B, so let's rule it out. C, medical representatives are the best ambassadors for pharma brands. Okay, great, but tablet X is effective or not for migraine? Does it have any impact on the conclusion? I think this is irrelevant. So shouldn't be our answer. Let's have a look at D. Tablet X is an over-the-counter medicine, while many other migraine medicines cannot be sold without a doctor's prescription. Ooh. So see, these guys may take tablet X because tablet X can be bought by them from a pharmacy, whereas the other medicines, and those other medicines could be more potent, right? They can be even more effective, but because you cannot get those other medicines without a doctor's prescription, they do not sell in as great a number. So if D is true, tablet X may not be the most effective cure for migraine. People opt for it merely because it is, despite being the second best or the third best, is easily available, thus they take it. So that is why I think the best answer for us here is option D. So I noticed that some of us are not very comfortable with critical reasoning. So just a couple of things. Number one, critical reasoning is a technical area. Please make sure that you study this area thoroughly from somewhere, right? आप मुझसे पढ़ें, किसी और से पढ़ें, किताब से पढ़ें, मगर पढ़ें ज़रूर. इसमें जो अप्रोच है वो बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है आपके लिए जानना. एंड आफ्टर दैट प्रैक्टिस अ लॉट. एंड if you're joining us, we'd of course have your practice concerns covered, but otherwise if you go online, you'd find material for GMAT or LSAT which has a lot of critical reasoning questions. Start with this question called assumption based questions. After that, move over to inference based questions, then solve strengthening and weakening questions, and then the fourth and the last question type that I want you to master here is parallel structure argument questions or analogous argument questions. I'm just writing that as analogy because of the space constraints, because these 5 things: assumption, inference, strengthen, weaken, and analogous argument, these are the 5 that we need for CAT RC. Okay, so make sure that you go ahead and get at least 70% accuracy in this particular area real soon. Rutik, easy and difficult are pretty subjective here, since you do not know this area today. It's absolutely okay to call it difficult, but I'm sure once you devote around 4 weeks to critical reasoning, your ability will grow so much within that period that you would start looking at these questions. Yeah, that's easy. ऐसे ही तो सोचना है, right? Okay, now that we are done with CR, let us go ahead and get into our passage. So, passage 1, take a deep breath, get ready, and then we'll dive into it. Ready? So here you go. I'll take you through the entire passage paragraph by paragraph, and the moment you're done reading the paragraph, just drop in the comment box that you're done and I'll take you over to the next page. No, Virender, that is not the interpretation that we can arrive at from D. All we know is, see, doctors can always prescribe a drug which is a non-prescription drug. Prescription drug is, you cannot buy it without a doctor's prescription. But a doctor can prescribe any drug. Doctors at times prescribe multivitamins, remember? So, okay, here you go. Next. So are we done with this? Fantastic. Next. Done with this particular paragraph? Okay, here's the next one. Through this. Okay, next. And if you are done, I would like to take you over to the last paragraph. Okay, here is the last one. Done. So this is a passage which essentially talks about two areas, or can be slotted under two areas: political theory and economics, right? So if you are comfortable or familiar with these things, this passage will be easy. Otherwise it can turn out to be challenging. And this passage happens to have a length of 539 words, which is just a little longer than the longest passage that we saw last year. So the longest passage last year had 517 words. So you should expect passages of around this length. Ameliorate basically means to improve, to make better. Ameliorate happens to be the antonym of another word that you know very well, and that word is deteriorate. So it's an opposite of deteriorate. So deteriorate is when things become progressively worse. Ameliorate is when they go on and become better. Sri, I would not really say it is very confusing. It basically fundamentally says that law and economics. Okay, but then they'll be like helping you in solving the questions. So let's go ahead and work on the questions. कल वाला आसान लग रहा था ना ज़्यादा. कल यार बहुत सारे सवाल सही कर दिए तुम लोगों ने. हाँ, which basically tells me that, oh, you've already reached that level, so I now need to take you to the next level. I may have overcompensated though, so let's see. So question number 4, what's your answer? Okay. Ooh, Nishant. My God. All of the following are true about the law and economics approach except. So 3 of these are true. 1 is not true, and the one that is not true should be marked as our answer, right? So I hope you are with me on this so far. So the first answer that I received was option D. In fact, D is the main idea, that law and economics entry has dismantled the welfare state. This in fact is the central theme of the passage. So D is definitely true and therefore should not be our answer. Would you like to try it again? Don't forget the use of except. Should I highlight some of these parts to help you? Should be here. Should be here. So part of it is written here, part of it is here. So that is basically the whole idea. Is they are turning it all into so neoclassical economics is basically what, that everything is determined by supply and demand. Government has little role to play. Lochner era approach was late 19th century, early 20th century. There was a Supreme Court judge in the US who basically gave a lot of verdicts in favor of free market, right? So look at this. They are attacking unions, delegitimating the social provisions of welfare state. It is there in the very first paragraph. So when you say that dismantle, so it basically means that all those elements that make a state a welfare state, they are against it. They are attacking those things. So the very first paragraph introduces this thought. So D can be definitely ruled out because it is true. It exacerbates imbalances in economic power. Yes. Now let's look at B. Let me take you back to the 4th paragraph. Here it is. The ideology of law and economics is that only interventions that help to balance power in society are in fact government interventions. But look at what is stated afterwards. But this is not true. says the passage. So, law and economics approach permits government interventions only in areas that help to balance power in society. The author has explicitly said that this is not true, and therefore the answer should be B, right? Okay, here is the next one. Question number 5, slightly longer, but I'm sure you'd be able to go through this and arrive at an answer. Take your time, use the seeker to go back to the right area of the passage, and then we can discuss it. Okay, I'll give you a hint. You need to refer to the second paragraph. Should I pitch in? Okay, second paragraph has this sentence at the beginning. It says, following neoclassical economic theory, law and economics suggested that society's resources are best allocated by permitting competition to set prices. And then the last sentence of the paragraph is, few other social scientists believe this. Now, what do you, and a growing number of economists do not believe it either. So, that notion which was introduced in the second paragraph, first sentence, society's resources are best allocated by permitting competition to set prices, right, is something that many economists have stopped believing in. That's given in option C, and therefore that should be our answer. So very clearly second paragraph points us towards this particular notion. I think some of us have faced this challenge of unfamiliarity, and then the author of course used a lot of technical words that could have been an issue. And as a result, perhaps that making of the overview got affected. Righto. So if you look at A, fair government intervention has not even been mentioned. So that helps us in eliminate option A. Option B contradicts the passage, but it does not point out specifically towards the difference between economists and that particular ideology. So that goes beyond the scope. Similarly, if you look at D, law and economics movement claims that it has a moral and political vision, but then it has been debunked in the next sentence by the author. Once again, it does not talk about the rift between the economists and law and economics ideology. So B and D are mentioned, but they are not relevant for this particular question, right? Next one, question number 6. So it can be inferred that all of the following are true about the law and economics ideology except. So I told you I'm trying to mimic the kind of question stems used in the last couple of years. So Deal with this. Hanji, so what's your take? What's your final answer? Okay, so I'm getting B, I'm getting D. So I think the first things first, okay, we know it is an inference question. What exactly needs to be done is secondary, but we need to go ahead and apply that label as true, false, can't say nonetheless. So the movement acts on behalf of the powerful. That's true. The movement is highly deceptive in its approach. That's true. You just need to refer to the first paragraph and you'd be able to infer A and B. C, it adheres to a particular political vision. Now it is deceptive, right? It hides its association with the big money. But in reality, it does have a moral and political vision. So this is also true. D, it is absolutely amoral in its thoughts and beliefs. What is amoral? Amoral is something for which morality does not apply. For example, let us say that I have my phone lying around. A grown-up comes and picks it up and leaves. Then he is trying to steal it. That is an immoral act. But imagine a young child, let's say 2-year-old, 3-year-old child. If that child comes, picks up my phone and then walks away, should I call it theft? Is it immoral? No. The child does not even have that concept of right and wrong yet. So children are amoral. Science claims to be amoral, but these guys are biased. It is just that they are trying to hide their bias, and therefore to say they are amoral is wrong. According to the passage, it is they are actually being immoral, and that is why our answer is D. Why? Look at this. It can be inferred that all of the following are true except, so 3 are true, 1 is not true. The one that is not true was supposed to be marked as an answer, and thus D it is. And here is the last question based on the passage for you. Please read the question stem carefully, get that interpretation right, and then choose the answer. Girinder, nadan can have a broader connotation. So, आप बड़े होने के बाद भी नादान हो सकते हैं, लेकिन amoral नहीं. So वो ऐसा I think नादान की specific moral sense में utility हमेशा नहीं होती. Okay, so none, okay, if I ignore except, what will you do? We said none of the following statements can be inferred from the passage. What does it mean? It means that all the following are not true. But the moment you introduce except, what are you saying? The 3 of these are not true, but 1 of these is true. Your job is to find out the option that can be labeled as true. So let us go ahead and see which all can be labeled as true. So A, the law and economics movement believes in capital firms controlling the means of production. This part, capital firms wanting to control the means of production, has not even been mentioned anywhere in the passage. and therefore the label for A, the correct label for A should be can't say. Let's look at B. The law and economics movement believes in price control only in the rarest of cases. They are against price control, right? They don't want that to happen. They are neoclassical economists. Free market, no government intervention. So there is no exception cited in the passage. So this is going to be can't say or probably false. Okay, C. There has been absolutely no reaction to economic domination by a few large firms. Guys, this is definitely false. In fact, there is a paragraph that says public debates have centered around economic power and the role of the law in it, with renewed calls for the law to do more to ameliorate economic domination rather than exacerbate it. Remember the last paragraph. So there have been debates, there have been reactions. So C is false. Let's have a look at D. The fundamental ideology of the law and economics movement is competition without any obstacles. That's true. And since we are looking for something that is true, our answer should be option D. गलतियां हुई, कोई बात नहीं. जिस दिन गलतियां करते हैं उस दिन ज़्यादा सीखते हैं, right? So, and it's a journey, don't worry. There are days when we perform really well. There are days when we get this feedback that, oh, I need to learn this area in order to continue that amazing, that magnificent performance, right? And before I sign out, एक random सवाल मुझे लगा आज कर लें, because a lot of us write NMAT before we write the CAT. So just one tiny little question. So here is the question. The directions, you can read them up, read the directions here straight up. Choose the sentence where the usage of the expression passing by is right, is correct. So what do you think? Which one, each one of these sentences use the expression pass by or passing by. Which one uses it in a way which can be termed grammatically or syntactically or terms of comprehension correct? Virender, when you talk about laissez-faire economies or neoclassical economists, they want no obstacle. They want no government interference. They want nothing that limits. And that's what the author argues in this passage for that matter. He says that, no, you can't have that. But that's what they want at least. So which one of these is correct? A passing by cannot be used as an adjective, Nishant. So you can say a taxi that was passing by was stopped, but you cannot say a passing by taxi. A taxi which is moving past you, you'd call it a passing taxi. You won't call it a passing by taxi. So D is wrong. Just say, you can say passing. And A is definitely wrong. I think a lot of us have probably heard this already. This too shall pass. ये भी गुजर जाएगा, है ना वो रात ये भी गुजर जाएगी. This too shall pass. Nothing is permanent. हाँ, ये कौन से स्कूल का कोर थॉट है? Any idea? The train was passing by the station. No, the train was crossing the station. We don't use passing by here. C on the other hand is right. He saw the criminals disguised as a tramp just passing by. So C it is. The others are wrong. In A and D, you definitely need to, you can remove the by and fix it. In B, you need to opt for a different expression altogether. Okay, so that's about the questions, but here is something from Usain Bolt today. The difference between the impossible and the possible lies in a determination. Now he used a determination, so I've used a at I was just quoting him, but the truth is this is grammatically wrong, so we could remove this. So the difference between the impossible and the possible is, it all boils down to your self-belief, your determination. Make sure that you hold on to